And we are live on Tuesday night for Triple T, number 54. That's right, we're 2 into 2023. Welcome to January 10th, 2023. My name is TJ Zudo. I like to call myself a professional problem solver. For those of you who are watching this for the very first time or watching live on YouTube, I appreciate you big time. If you would do me the favor of all the good YouTube stuff, click subscribe, ring the bell, do a little dance, leave some comments, whether you like me or not, all the above, I would appreciate it. For those of you that are used to seeing some regulars on here, I don't know what's in the air, but got some texts last couple of days that there's a few people that aren't going to be able to join us. They'll be watching the recording. So yes, miss you. Looking forward to getting you back soon. With that being said, we got a few people here. I appreciate that. What else? Oh, let's see. I do have a website, www. Yeah, like we need to say that anymore. TheTSWB.com. That's right. TheTallSkinnyWhiteBoy.com. Trivia question. People ask you what that means. I do offer a free 30-minute consult. That's your opportunity to get a hold of me and have 30 minutes of my time to do whatever you want, ask whatever questions. If you're looking for help on specific things, anxiety, depression, phobias, I do corporate consultations. Looks like I might be doing a restaurant consult here coming up. All sorts of fun things. If you're wondering, ask me. If I don't know the answer, I'll let you know. But I will also try to find you the person that has the answer for you or that can help you. That being said, how's everybody doing tonight? How was your week since we talked last? I heard you had a fun and exciting week. All sorts of glorious activities involved.
Yeah, still recovering. Lots of pain pills.
Well, then we will let you go on any comments you feel come up. If those pain pills can, we'll just blame it on the pain pills. For those of you that are wondering, I decided to lose a little weight. What'd you give up?
My appendix ruptured.
Oh, so you gave up an appendix.
Yeah.
That's a rough way to lose weight. I don't recommend it. My brother went through that. So lots of healing energies being sent your way. And how about you? How was your week? Anything interesting to share?
Oh yeah, new year, pushing through, which is a great thing. Finding new ways to lean into discomfort. And I have found that it's not nearly as bad as what I thought was on the other side. So being afraid of it and not wanting to look at it, but actually now going into it. I think there was one, what animal is it? Is it bulls that run into the storm, but cows run away from it so they're in it longer?
Buffalo.
Buffalo. That's it. Thank you. So oddly enough, my birthday sign is a Taurus. So
There you have it.
It's finally working.
Well, I guess we can get started. Tonight's topics were actually brought about by a friend of mine on YouTube, and it was cravings, addictions, and procrastinations, which ironically fits into a whole lot of resolutions, being we're in that 6-week period where everybody's still doing the new year, new me. Wee, I can do this for a little while. All the people that have been going to the fitness clubs and the gyms religiously for the last year are grumbling and mumbling, waiting for the middle of February to show up so they can get their facilities back. But cravings, I think a lot of it, environmental, obviously what your household was like when you were growing up. One of the worst, of course, being sugar, because here in the good old US of the A, sugar is the reward for everything growing up. Oh, it's your birthday. Here, have a pound of sugar. Oh, you got an A on your test. Oh, here, have a pound of sugar. Oh, it's the holidays. Here, have 35 pounds of sugar. And we start to anchor being good and rewards to sugar. What could go wrong? Other cravings, I believe, are also linked to feel-good anchors. The phrase comfort food comes to mind. On those days when things didn't go quite right, mom and dad aren't around anymore, but mom used to make that meatloaf with mashed taters and fresh homemade bread. I'm going to be hungry here before this session is done. Or it could be something like a special cookie, especially around the holiday season. Certain people, I grew up in Minnesota, yeah. And I don't always say it that way, but that way people know that I'm not making it up. And I remember rosettes and lefse, and yeah, if you're from Minnesota, you know what I'm talking about. Go ahead, leave a comment. In fact, I would like all of you to leave a little comment. What were some of your favorite anchor foods growing up? Last week I made beef stew, beef vegetable stew from scratch. And it's funny how you forget what that's like, what it makes the house smell like. And I've been a foodie most of my life. Those of you that know me, got to have good food. Life's too short to eat cardboard. But that being said, cravings can also go for lots of other things, and ties right into when does a craving become an addiction? And that's where the juxt of the angle comes in. You're like, kind of craving it. But, yeah. Versus, I'm out. Or, oh, I've only got 3 left for the night. Or the people that come to people like us for weight loss and smoke cessation, gambling, all the addictions that can be listed here. And we know that there's tons of them. And why is it that some people are more prone to it than others?
That's a great question.
A lot of times when I'm working with people on addictions, I'm finding a good portion of it comes down to programs put on their hard drive between conception and ages 5 to 7. Mom and dad, generational, all the above, things being said, things that they saw when they were young kids. And those are typically the easier ones to deal with. The ones that are a real challenge are the highly addictive chemicals, heroin, meth, coke, those. And even then, it's interesting. I've done some research on this, and the body still has to have the chemistry, the ingredients have you to be able to utilize the drug properly. Even when we look at legal pharmaceuticals, I found out very early on that Tylenol 3 with codeine does nothing for me. I get more out of a couple of ibuprofen than I do out of a couple of T3s. And yet, a friend of mine, a couple of ibuprofens knocked her out like a full-on sleeping pill every time. With that in mind, how much of addictions is that chemistry in the body that takes those components and turns it into a chemical reaction that becomes a craving and then becomes an addiction? When we start looking into ways to help clients with these issues, it's not a one size fits all. Is it childhood environment? Is it substituting an answer? Is it an escape? Is it a true chemical reaction chasing a high? One of the things in a talk on addictions talked about how those highly addictive chemicals, heroin, meth, and all that stuff, what happens is before them, you have a baseline of happiness, whatever you want to call it, all the above. And you try that drug and bam, on a scale of 1 to 100, you hit that 80 or that 90. The problem is if your baseline was a 20, when you come back down, you don't come back down to 20. Your baseline gets dropped down to 15. And now you try the same amount of the drug, but you don't hit the 90 again. You hit an 85 or an 80 per se, but you don't come back down to 15, you come down to 10. And now your body's trying to figure out why is sober, baseline, whatever, why is this so sucky? Because they don't realize that now they've notched it down to 10 instead of being at 20. And they chase that 90, and it's even harder and harder to get to that initial hit and constantly coming back farther. I've got a couple of clients that I've helped with. One has been on meth for quite a long time. And when he's not on meth, he miserable. His baseline has gotten so low that he can't figure out happy. And while I was I'm still working with him, but he's made vast improvements. Part of what happened, what helped him, was realizing his baseline is where it's at right now. And he has to figure out, you can't look to the past and go, but in the past, when I wasn't high, I was happier. Yes, you were. And you're going to have to figure out how to stay away from here long enough to reevaluate baseline and build your baseline back up to pre-user day. That, along with regression therapy, things of that nature, and finding out that they, while being around the parents at a young age, a lot of those anchors were set in place. So back to cravings versus addictions. Where does the line cross? And that's another one where I think you're going to find it different for everybody. When we talk smoke cessation, and I learned this from Ken Guzzo, who, as far as I'm concerned, one of the premier smoke cessation gurus on the planet right now. Classes are great, and I used nicotine for years, starting at a young age. Papa was a smoker, heavy smoker, pack and a half, 2-pack a day, easy. And I thought nicotine was an addictive chemical. It's what they tell us. Well, why would they tell us that? Makes it pretty easy to sell you all the patches and gums and all of the things that don't work. And I could go into the whole thing, but I'm not going to steal from Ken's training. But when we go in and, hey friend, when we go into that, it's not always just the exposure to the nicotine. It's identity. A lot of times people will say, I am a smoker. I smoke. It's now you're battling with identity, not with a usage. In fact, a lot of times I will tell them, repeat after me. 1, I am a smoker. 2, I am a person who uses nicotine. What's the energy difference when you say those 2 sentences? And oftentimes you're like, wow, the second one it feels a lot different because you're not a smoker. We don't put lumber in you and some meat and bring out good barbecue. You're a person who uses nicotine. A lot of those cravings and addictions, when you start reframing the identity to the product, you've already started the healing. Food is another overused product for depression, anxiety, and all the above. And a lot of it is learned at an early age. Sadly, and go by any school grounds or anything and look at our kids in America today. They are getting larger and larger and larger and unhealthier, unhealthier, and unhealthier. The next generation is the first one whose life expectancy is shorter than the generation before it. Yeah, go ahead.
They actually are coming out with a new drug for children for obesity. To help.
Oh, yeah, let's treat it with drugs instead of teaching, training, getting rid of the stuff that's making them obese. I remember back when we had FIED in school. Physical education. Yes, the gym. We got to wear those amazingly flattering shorts and shirts that smelled, well, you would never have been able to escape from the county wearing your gym clothes from middle school, because it wouldn't even need a bloodhound to track you.
What a picture.
Yes, yes.
When it comes
Finally, when your shirt could stand on its own in a corner, the FIED teacher would be like, you need to take that home and wash it. Now that I've painted that picture,
I think I speak for all of us when we say we're so glad this is not smell-o-vision.
yeah, right? But the cool part about that is healthy lifestyle can also be an addiction. Addictions, quote unquote, come in many shapes, forms, and sizes. And there are healthy addictions and there are unhealthy addictions. Healthy cravings, unhealthy cravings. We have to be cognitive of where we're at on that spectrum and give our tribe permission. But don't be afraid to ask. And if you know that you're dealing with unhealthy cravings or addictions, get the help. Reach out to myself or a number of the people on these calls. Take advantage of the 30-minute free consult. If I can't help you, I will most certainly do all that I can to find somebody who can.
I think when it comes to food, at least I'll speak solely for me. I would not have, had you told me I had an addiction to sugar, I would not have worn up and down on a stack of Bibles. And looking back, I can clearly see things, because hindsight, she's always 20/20, but I can clearly see where that was quite an addiction. And you don't consider it one, at least I didn't consider an addiction to food. I wasn't like on a 700-pound TV show, eating cake for viewers or anything like that, but it certainly was, and it was not fun. So if anybody is having any concerns, reach out to the tswp.com or anybody on here, like he says. It's a big deal.
And you help clients with this as well. So if if you're out there and you're watching this or you're watching the recording and you would much rather prefer to work with a female practitioner, please reach out to Lenora. If you don't know how to get a hold of her, how do you get a hold of her?
etbhorizons.com. Thank you.
And I think you hit on something there, especially with the sugar in the food. Because it's socially accepted and you can go into any place that has food or candy and buy all you want without people giving you, I mean, how much sugar do you have to buy before people start looking at you like, you can walk out with 5 boxes of juju beans and back in the day when I was a kid, pixie sticks. Big old plastic straw full of sugar. So shove that, wash that down with a Mountain Dew, and pretty soon you're ready to mow the lawn with a fingernail clipper.
Yeah.
And now they call it certain letters, like it has A's and B's, and apparently I had 80 of them.
A's and B's.
But back then it was like, you also were free range parented. You were like, if you got that much energy, go out and mow the lawn. And you'd be like, oh, peace out. Gonna be on the bicycles with the kid, with my friends. Be home by the time the street lights come on. And we would be out on BMX style bicycles, single speed bicycles, and only put on like 35 miles.
Yeah, it was a totally different world. Kids don't even go out and play that much anymore.
Yeah, climbing.
Mhm. I find it's interesting when they are supporting like healthy play for kids. They say children 60 minutes a day, but for adults they'll say no, you only need 20 minutes a day. Or it's very manipulated, the information that they're feeding people.
Yes. And when you again go back to the subject of the night, cravings and addictions, a lot of us got addicted to outdoors, fresh air, sunlight, activities, moving. And sometimes that wore off and was replaced with other cravings and addictions. Anybody else got any questions? You can type them in if you'd like, or any other input. I think I've about covered all that I had planned and unplanned on this. That leads us to procrastination. Maybe I should get to that later. I don't know. I got other things that I should probably do first.
But I'm bump.
But in fact, it was funny. Yesterday, when I was out running errands at the dentist office, lady next to me was like gathering available times for appointments, potential costs. And I said, "You're diffusing bombs, aren't you?" And she looked at me, she goes, "What?" I said, "Who's this for?" "It's for my husband." "Yeah," I said, you're diffusing bombs so that when he tries to put it off and put it off and put it off, like, well, there probably not any openings for the next 5 months. Well, we've got these 5 openings. Well, it probably costs too much. Well, it costs this much. And humans will find many, many more reasons to not do something. Totally guilty. There are times I do what I call fiddle futzing. Yes, that is a term. And I can fiddle futz all day long, get tons of stuff done, except for the few things that I need to complete. And be cognitive of it the entire time. And there are so many different schools of thought on procrastination, things of that nature. There are also a multitude of ways to get around it, to fix it. And everybody has their one that works. And I'm curious, when you panel, could you share some of your procrastination solutions?
I'm so good at procrastinating. I have an award up until recently when you were talking about on another Triple T about promises, that you're keeping a promise to yourself and what are the top 3 that need to get done, and then to even write down what you're doing, to recognize what you're doing. So now instead of instead of having a to-do list, I have a promise list, so that I promise myself that I'm going to do this week. So it was a bit of a rebrand of my brain.
And some of it, I think, comes down to, once again, anchors and programs put on your hard drive at a very young age. I can still hear a few people tell me that I worked harder at not working than I did at the job I was supposed to do. And it took me quite a while to reframe that, which is why I've gotten on a few parents' cases when I've heard limiting belief statements being said to kids. So if you've got kids, I'm not judging, because raising little humans, whoo, what a job. And everybody has a rule book. Everybody has their way of doing it. Everybody's judging you, and you just you wish for the best. And you do the best you can at the time with the tools, knowledge, and energy that you have available to you. And there are a few techniques that I have some very strong opinions on. One of which is the Count to 3 program, which I always say teaches children how to count to 2.5. Stop doing that, I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2. And then the kid's mind is like 1, 2, 2.5. And then the kid counts to 10 and then starts again. And you're, I told you to stop, I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2, 2.5. Now the kid counts to 20 and starts again. And if it works for you, but I've seen it not work so many times that it just drives me insane. And I think part of that can build into procrastination because it's threats without follow-up. we can tell ourselves, you got to do it. And if we don't do it, what are the circumstances?
So I never thought of it that way, of that counting. I always thought of procrastination as like rebelling the authority that you're trying to be in your head. And the other version is like, no, I don't want to listen to authority.
Well, it's amazing how when we're held accountable, how much less do we procrastinate? When the deadline is set in stone, and if you don't get it done, you don't get paid, there's a whole lot less procrastination going on. And then, of course, the excuse is, well, I work better under pressure, so I should probably start it, but I've got like 6 months before it needs to be done. So I'm going to wait until I've got 6 hours left before the deadline, and then I'm going to cram and freak out and give a half-assed product because I work better under pressure. You know how I can say that so easily? I used to say that so easily. Especially when it came to homework and things I didn't like to do. And here we are as adults, with a little child inside going, I don't want to do it. Oh, squirrel. Let's go chase that squirrel. Yes, that'll be productive. Oh, got away. Oh, got to do. I don't want to do that. Oh, squirrel. I'll clean the entire house before I get my taxes done because it's really hard for me to focus on my taxes with a dirty house. Oh, I just can't do that. Oh. Uh-huh. And when you start, especially for those of us that work with people in their natural environment, who come to us and they're like, I have troubles procrastinating. How long did it take you to call me? Well, I was going to do it about 2 years ago. And we start drilling down to regression. Where did you start learning this? What pleasure are you getting out of it? Are you running away from pain or towards pleasure? Oftentimes, we know you're running away from the projected pain of doing the job. It's also values and criteria. You can boil it down to attention span, all sorts of other things. But you have to figure out what is the recipe, what is going to make you do it, what is your why, what is your how, what are your values and criteria. Because again, dealing with humans in their natural environment, there is no single one repair. Not one size fits all. And if Big Pharma could come up with a pill for it, I'm sure they would love to in a heartbeat. That's right. It's Procrastinator Buster. Take 2 pills, get your stuff done.
They're going to work on it tomorrow.
Yeah, they're listening, and it'll be out in just a bit. It'll 1995. Don't delay. Do it today. Buy one, get one free. Kids, don't try this at home. Any other questions from anybody else on procrastination, or are you going to wait till the end to ask me?
What are some good things that you've learned along the way, or some things that your clients have shared with you that work for them to reduce the procrastination?
Well, one of the biggest ones that I teach, and that I have, a lot of this I learned for me, lists, writing down lists, prioritizing lists, chunking down, chunking up, because of a couple of different things. The psychology behind seeing what needs to be done instead of the overwhelming trying to keep it in your head. You know you got to get it done, but you also know that, oh, there's like 38 other things that I should do today, and da, 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 da. The other part is the satisfaction and the reward system of accomplishing something and being able to cross it off the list. I'm trying to remember who I heard it from first, but like Tony Robbins, one of those guys, stated, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. And so you have to have 3 priorities laid out for the day. And you can set them up the night before. For some people that have insomnia, things of that nature, they go to bed and they start thinking about, oh, tomorrow I got to do that, oh, I got to get this done, Have your list by the bed. Do a brain dump before it's time to go to bed. Write down the things that you need to accomplish tomorrow. Set your top 3 priorities. And I tell some people, if you need the extra juice in the morning, get out of bed by 7 a.m. Make the bed by 7:15 a.m. And you get to mark those off. Now you've got room for 2 new priorities that you can get from the list. But that can give you those little bumps of dopamine of, hey, the list got smaller. Ding, ding. And you can break your day into different sections. Here are my top 3 priorities for 7 to 10 a.m. Here are my top 3 priorities for 10 to 3. And here are my top 3 priorities for 3 to 5. Yep.
I used to think that it was ridiculous to write stuff like that down. Like, oh, make your bed. Well, no shit. But what I noticed was that you're writing it to hold yourself accountable and realize that you're just, even though it's that small, it's still something that you got accomplished. And it's not so much for you in your heart as much as it is for your brain to start to understand you're doing something, you're moving forward. Okay, what's next? And to keep that moving forward. And I used to think like, oh my gosh, it's like that simple. That's so ridiculous. But really it's also that simple. And yes, to start there so that you can move upwards and take on those bigger tasks.
I've also found for procrastinators, making your bed helps. It's one of those where you've made your first accomplishment. And the oh, hey Nancy. In making the bed, I've had to teach this to a couple of people. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. Some people will make their bed going, well, the sheets, the covers are on the bed, and so are the pillows. And then you get people that have been in the military for a while and learned how to make a bed so that you can bounce quarter off of it. I'm somewhere in the little more towards bounce the quarter off of it. But it is that initial primary feat of accomplishment to start the day. And it allows you to move on and start tackling other things. Yay, I've got one thing done. Any questions or inputs or ahas, epiphanies from anybody else on this? No procrastinating now. This would be a good time to jump right in. The other thing is worst case scenario. I like asking people, what's the worst case scenario if you push it off farther? And best case scenario, what's the worst case scenario if you jump in and get it done right now? And they'll be like, I don't. Well, worst case scenario, if you do it right now, you're probably going to miss half an hour of this show that you're wasting time with, that you could have TiVo'd or numbed your brain with.
There was I think Ed Milet, just I saw a small clip of it. I think it was him. He said he had built his confidence and his superior confidence skills by holding himself accountable and recognizing to do one more. So if he said he was going to do something, he was going to do it for one more minute. So if it was like, I'm going to run for 45 minutes, I'm going to run for 46. If I'm going to do the laundry, he would do one more thing after that to really make sure that he would keep going past it. And I think Tony Robbins said that on, oh my gosh, on like a cassette. That's how long ago I heard that from Tony Robbins, to really hold yourself accountable. And when you're done, do one more, add one more.
I had a little squirrel run across the road when you said that. Knowledge and tips and pointers like that age very well. Just like when I had my DJ business and people come up and they'd be like, oh, yeah, well, that's so old. I'm surprised that you listened to that. And I said, yeah, it's kind of like a painting, but it's way before your time. You probably never heard of it. It's called the Mona Lisa. I mean, like, it's way back there. Oh. Good advice, things of that. Look at some of Chinese medicine, Eastern Oriental, all that stuff. How far back does some of that go? And of course, when they found out that they could make pills from processes and petroleum, they hid those remedies for years. Tried to outlaw them. And all of a sudden you find out that you shouldn't be killing the dandelions in your yard because dandelion leaf is very beneficial to your health. Who'd have thunk it?
I have that about dandelions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Grandpa Hugh,
Pardon.
Grandpa Hugh used to have us go out and pick dandelion leaf all the time, and we'd have dandelion salad. Yeah. And of course, as kids, we're like, we're picking the weeds. Mom makes it out of iceberg lettuce, which is like, has all the health benefits of a glass of water.
I mean, I've had dandelion root and tea, but I don't really know if I'm going to go out to my own yard and pick it up.
Yeah, we got two things done. The yard looked better
That is true.
by today's standards. And us kids had a salad that they could afford.
That is true. See, I would just mind giving those flowers to people.
And, Grandpa Hugh knew that stuff. He had us, we were rarely sick. Rarely. And here we are.
Ta-da! Going back to procrastination, there was, I think it was from Ed also, that I had heard this. He cuts his day up into 3 days. So every 6 hours, he has a new day and he treats his time differently. And I thought that was incredible because, if you think about the whole day and you don't give yourself a time frame, you're like, oh, I could do it later. I could do it later. I could do it later. And but if you break it up into 6 hours, or you say, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to do this. And to really honestly look like, okay, it might take, or I'll work on it for a half hour. This might take 2 hours of my time, and to commit to that time frame, but also to treat time differently. He said, back in the day, you'd have to sit down, write a letter, get it down to the post office, let it travel for a number of days. That person would finally get it, respond, send it back. He's like, now you send email. You can't treat time the same. Time is completely different today. And I was like, wow, that's a great reframe.
Exactly. And along those lines is also, how long is it actually going to take you to do it? Well, I've got 3 weeks to do it. That's not what I asked. Because, and trying to, I don't know if it was Simon Sinek that I heard this from, somebody like that said, if they give you 3 weeks to do it, it'll take you 3 weeks. If they give you 3 hours to do it, it'll take you 3 hours. And you'll get it done you'll get the same amount of work done. So boil it down to how long will it take to do it? Get it done as soon as you can get it started and finished. And then take the extra 2 3/4 weeks off to do other things. But don't wait until you're down to the last 3 hours to do it, knowing that you can do it in 3 hours, because then you don't have time for any hiccups. Who's the expert? Person that's a half a step ahead of the process. The other advantage of being able to complete tasks ahead of schedule is its added value to the marketplace. And Jim Rohn pointed out, you don't get paid for the time that you're at work. Otherwise, everybody would be rich. All you had to do is show up and spend an hour at work and get a paycheck. You get paid for the value that you bring to the marketplace. And if you're one of those people that has learned how to control procrastination, be given a task, get to it as soon as possible, complete it as soon as possible, you have the option of turning it in as soon as possible or improving on it until its due date. Do you want to deliver an average product? Wait till the very end to get started, slam out what you can do? Or do you want to release an above average product? Get started on it as soon as possible. If you get it completed and you still have 2 weeks left, you have the option of working on other distractions that you put off. And while you're working on those distractions, you may have some ahas, epiphanies that you can go, oh, and go back to the project and tweak it until its due date. Been there, done that a couple of times, because I was lucky enough to work with a few people that had no problems with procrastination. We had them a project and we're like, let's go. Well, we got 6 weeks. I know. And we're already 6 minutes into the project and we got nothing done. Let's go. Snap 2. Hop, hop. And part of this can be addressed with identity management. Yes, it's just another mask. We all have witnessed some way, somehow, real or fictitious, alive or dead, somebody who, as soon as you hand them a project, they are on it right now. Top Skippy, getting it done. They're also the person that's up at 6 a.m., dressed, already had breakfast, and they seem to be able to get 3 days worth of stuff done in a day. And unfortunately, we also know the opposite people. Give them a project, tell them it's due in a week, because in reality, you need it done in a month. But if you tell them that it needs to be done in a week, it might be done in 6, and you'll only have to make up excuses for 2 weeks. Any input on that while we're 2 minis away from the top of the hour?
When you're walking somebody through a procrastination blaster and you're trying to get them to move towards what they want to accomplish, which way do you frame the question?
Depends on the situation or what they're trying to work on. Dr. David Snyder has a really good procrastination buster protocol, and one of it is you have a particular item that needs to be done. And you start out with as much energy as you can of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. And you just start screaming, I don't want to do this. And then I get to do this. I get to do this. I get to do this. And you watch the reframe in your head. There's a lot of power in the switchover of I have to do versus I get to do. And too many people, especially procrastinators, oh, I have to do this. And they usually say that with that very charming, uplifting energy. I have to do this project and it's got to be done in 2 weeks. All right, Skip. Glad to see you're going to jump right into it. Versus the people that almost nauseate you at like, wow, I get to do this project and I've got 2 weeks to do it. Oh, I got to start right now. And they got it done in like a day and a half. All depends on the project, doesn't it? That is true. And that's where one size doesn't fit all. Because depending on the project, boils down to values and criteria. Why is it important to you? Some people will be so excited about a project that makes you want to hurl that would take you forever to even want to get started. They're already done. Bottom line, values and criteria.
Cogs wheeling around in here.
What's that?
Cogs are wheeling around in here.
Good. Then this conversation was worth it already.
Very helpful.
And that brings us up to the top of the hour. For those of you, if this is your first time participating or watching Triple T, the first hour I open up my brains and pour them out on the table and try to share whatever nuggets I've got to help you. Second hour, I open up the mic. It's open mic time. If you have a subject or questions that you would like answered, please present them, and we allow anybody on the call to first answer, and then I will give my 2 cents, or 3.5. So, open mic. Anybody got any questions or topics they would like to add to it? Thanks, Lance. Have a good night. Appreciate you showing up. Now back to anybody got any topics? Bueller. Otherwise, I'm going to have to.
I didn't know if Nancy was popping on. Question about allergies.
Allergies.
Yes. Do you have any protocols for allergies?
I do have protocols for allergies. Ironically, some of them are regression.
Okay.
Going back to, do you remember a time when you were not allergic? What's different? Where's the energy reside? You go into holographic memory resolution. Can use energy or a color game on it. I've found some allergies to go back multi-generational. I've had a number of success stories.
I apparently woke up allergic to something, and through a process of elimination, I think it may be walnuts and almonds all of a sudden. And I wasn't last month, but I am this month. So I don't know where it came from or why it's here. I'm not going to be.
Anybody else want to chime in? I know that I just said that I like to let everybody else answer first, but and the panel's quiet tonight. There's, yeah, if it happened that quickly, I would most likely regress to what was going on about the time that your body decided to link that to an issue. And reverse it again using color-gain, holographic memory resolution, things of that nature.
Did you ever reframe, or have you heard anything from Bum? He actually will reframe seizures, and that the seizure is actually the reoccurrence of the initial event, but he will reframe them and has had quite a number of success with it. So I'm guessing the theme with allergies.
Seizures, migraines. I've found a number of migraines to be a Memorex. If you're old enough to, if you're watching this, you're old enough to remember what a Memorex reference is. It's simply a replay of the original, and you do regression. You go back and you take all the energy out of the initial, and magically they stop happening. Anybody else got some information they would like to share on the topic? Is it time for another topic? Another question? I know you guys got questions. I know.
I always do.
That's
I know Holly's gonna watch this recording and she's gonna be laughing her butt off because someone was full of questions. When people talk about worthy and deservingness, what does that mean to you? Or everybody on the panel? I know there are a couple of cameras that are off, but I know you guys are listening. What is worthiness and deserving to you? And yeah, let's just leave it at that.
Anybody want to address that quick? Hello? Are you guys actually out there? And I know for those of you watching live on YouTube, next time you can join us live on Zoom and interact with us. Worthiness and deservedness, a lot of that is going to come down to a cross between identity and values and criteria. And I also like to have them define what the word means, because it's a label. And if you've listened to enough of my triple T's, you'll know that nothing means anything until you give it a label. So be very careful on the labels you put on things. Deservedness, worthiness. It saddens me how many people, when I have them say out loud, I am worthy, will have a hesitation or a lack of energy inside of it. They can say the words, but it comes out hollow. And as the king or queen of your kingdom, you are worthy. You are worthy and deserve to have the best life possible. That is not saying that I'm not saying you do, you are worthy and deserve to live in top Manhattan, Skyview suite, all the above. for some people, that would be terrible. You are worthy and deserve to have your best life possible. And you can design that. And of course, there'll be people, oh, but TJ, you don't know what I've got going on in my life. Oh, this, oh, that. Yes, there will always be excuses. There will always be outside forces. There will always be something. That doesn't mean you're not worthy or deserving of having that life. And if you're worthy and deserving of it, what's keeping you from having it? Is it a software? Is it a hardware issue? Is it your environment? Is it your tribe? One of the more profound things that I heard, and Dr. David Snyder said it many times. People like, I want to make more money. And his answer, move. Move to an area that has a lot more rich people in it. Because by simply being around them, you will have to rise up to the level. I want to be in better shape. Change your tribe. Stop hanging around people whose idea of a 5-course meal is a bag of Cheetos and 4 beers. Hang around people whose idea of exercise isn't rolling over in bed. 12-ounce curls. Yeah. I've traveled enough, and it's interesting. You can get into certain areas. There are certain areas in California. The vast majority of the population in that area is attractive. It's also very hard to find a junk food, fast food restaurant. Quinky dink? I don't think so. Because that group of people believe in a certain lifestyle. And you can move there, and chances are quite high you'll see your health improve simply by being in that energy sphere. Having those people around you. One, it's harder to find the beer batter, deep fried, Krispy Kreme, double cheeseburger with extra bacon. Now I know I just made some of you hungry, and some of you probably just threw up in the back of your mouth. That's the difference between the mindsets.
I was gonna say talk about triggering sugar cravings.
Yeah. It's also interesting that in those areas, the vast majority of the menus have the calorie count. Even when you go into $5 and order your triple espresso cream latte mocha pichu with the caramel drip and the extra froth, and all of a sudden you look down and it's 6,000 calories in a single drink. But I gotta have my $5 in the morning or I just can't get going. I'm like, well, yeah. If I had one of those, I could mow the lawn with a fingernail clipper in a half an hour. But that's because I don't consume much sugar. In fact, about 6 years ago now, I went back to Minnesota, yeah, and I hadn't drank a pop or a soda, or if you're from Texas, a Coke, which means it can be any brand, in so long. And one of my good friends, I was over there, it was in the summertime, hot, I was thirsty, and he said, "You want a pop? Or you want something to drink?" I was like, "Yeah, I could use something cold to drink." And he opened up his fridge and all he had was Mountain Dew. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't going to turn it down, but I'd have been happy if he'd have just turned on his garden hose. I could have drank from that. And I literally could only drink half the can. I couldn't, it was forcing it down. Yes, it was cold. Yes, it was wet. It was so thick, syrupy, sweet. I couldn't believe that I used to drink that all the time. But I had luckily gotten away from it long enough that I didn't have the cravings or the addictions. Nice timing. I'd gotten away from it long enough that it no longer had a hold on me. And I tell you what, I was buzzing like a chainsaw from half a can of Mountain Dew. There she is.
I'm live now.
Yes. So
And I've got so many comments that are bursting out of the previous conversations.
like, Mom, bring it on.
Bring it on, bring it on. Oh, so there's so many. I wish I had a notebook with me while I was out and about. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll just jump in. Procrastination, that's one of my favorite topics that because I love creative procrastination. And, you know I've told everybody my views on this before, but it, for me, is when I hit a problem that it's just too hard. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next, or the job's just too big. And so I put it off because it's just going to take so much time and effort. And if while I'm in that phase, I think, okay, don't worry about that, just do something else. Very often the number 2 item on my list, which has also been something that I've been putting off, I can get that done easily. You know, it's no effort because I'm putting off that thing that I really, really didn't want to do. And while I'm doing that second job, very often my unconscious mind, because I'm not focusing on it and not putting pressure on myself, it'll find a really efficient way to get that job, that number 1 job that I was putting off. It'll find a much more efficient way to get it done in, you know, 1/8 of the time that it would have taken me if I'd just jumped straight in and slogged at it and gone head to head with it. So, you know, I've done this numerous times, especially if it's a case of tackling a big job that needs a lot of thought and a lot of reorganizing. If you just let your unconscious mind do it by doing something else, by focusing on something else, you'll be amazed at how much easier it is. So procrastination isn't all bad. Procrastination can be creative. And then there's the, You know, there's the jobs that you don't want to do because they're boring, like doing the dishes. So how about thinking, how many different ways can you do the dishes? How can you make it a creative process? How can you actually scry or tell fortunes and bubbles while you're doing the dishes and see all these amazing confirmations and recreate the universe in your dishwashing bowl? So that I think, and variety, that's the other thing. I get bored with one topic. Now, this can be problematic because I've got 5 jobs on the go at least at any one time. So the challenge there is having discrete areas for each job. So you can do a bit of this one, get bored, or reach a point where I don't know what to do next, go on to another one. And you've got to change. So, you know, the boring aspect has been put away. I'm not just focusing on this one thing over and over. But the only problem with that is if you're messy like me, they tend to merge into each other, and then you've got an unholy mess and you've got to sort them out before you can do the next step. And then allergies. Lenora was talking about allergies. Well, I guess in the hypnosis community, most of us have sort of heard of the fast phobia technique. And like TJ, that works in any time, any place, which is kind of handy to time jump with it as well. That's all I can think of off the top of my head because I didn't have a notebook with me.
I got to jump in real quick on the items you brought up in procrastination. A couple of scrolls popped up with that. One is it reinforced the importance of lists because it's so easy to bounce back and forth and lose sight of the priorities. If you've got 3 priorities listed down, and priority number 1 is the big slimy frog on the plate, and you don't want to deal with it, you can jump to 2 or 3, get them done, and know that you still have to get number 1 done some way, somehow. The other idea that popped up when you said that is right in line with the importance of labels and identity and being very careful on how strongly you identify with I'm a procrastinator, stating I'm a procrastinator. I always procrastinate. Oh, I'm a terrible procrastinator. Well, your subconscious hears that enough and wants to make sure that you live up to your word and will do its darndest to make sure that you find plenty of reasons, plenty of options, plenty to make sure you don't get the project done so that you can stay true to your identity of being a procrastinator. What are some better ways to relabel the identity statement of I'm a procrastinator?
I have a habit of procrastination.
That's one. Yes, I have a habit of procrastinating. What's another one?
I like to do things in a different order
There.
because
Notice
I can.
but notice how different that statement felt. If you say the difference between the two, I'm a procrastinator, I'm a person who does things in a different order. I'm a person who has multi-leveled priorities.
Priorities is really valuable.
Yes. When you start saying that I tackle my priorities in a multi-level fashion, you're not hanging on to the idea of procrastinating. You know you got to get it done. And you can start realigning yourself with a better form. I used to be a person who procrastinated, and now I'm a person who tackles my priorities in a multifaceted fashion. Ooh, that was a whole lot of $25 phrases. Yep.
Which kind of brings me on to, I know I hammered on about it before, the Z list. You know, if you've got jobs to do, you don't know how or when or where they're going to happen, or you don't have the money for it, write it down the back of your diary or on your tablet in a page that you don't look at so much, and just know it's there, know where it is. Don't look at it for several months. And you can add to it anytime you like. All the things you don't know what to do, how you're going to do them, and when you're going to do them. Just put them on the Z list, because your unconscious mind knows they're there. And if you go back to your Z list in a few months' time, you will be surprised how many have already done themselves. You didn't even think about it. And the other thing that I love is the silent wizard. That's what I call it. That if I don't know how to do a problem, very often I think of either somebody real or imagined, whether it's you, TJ, or Lenora. What would they advise me if I told them this problem? And I actually imagine the conversation in my head. And it can be an imaginary person. It can be, you know, King Solomon way back. And I get information back to me that I swear I would not have thought of out of me. And if I think of that, and then just before I go to sleep and sleep on it, very often I've had an epiphany in the middle of the night, and I know what to do. And I haven't even spent any effort on thinking about it. I just know that, okay, this is the way it will work. And it does. And I had one of those silent wizard and epiphany moments this morning. So, you know, it is really easy, everyday stuff, and things that you thought you didn't know come out.
Thank you for bringing that up, because one of the big epiphanies that just hit is your tribe doesn't have to consist of physical people. You can, the number of times when I'm working with a client and they'll ask me a question or something, and I'll go, what solution do you think so-and-so, even myself, might come up with? I don't offer them a solution. I say, what would so-and-so, what might so-and-so do? I'll be darned if an answer doesn't come out where I'm even like, wow. Especially when I ask them, well, what answer do you think I might give you? They'll come up with an answer, and I'm like, I hadn't even thought of that one. I'm doing pretty good.
And another really efficient way for anybody that doesn't want to think about invisible wizards or whatever, if you actually write your question down on a piece of paper, so you've got this thought formed into a sentence, then you put it on a piece of paper, so you have the action of writing it, then you can have the action of reading that, fold it up, put it under your pillow when you go to sleep, and just know that information will come through. And leave it there as long as you like, but sleep, that really is sleeping on it. And it is absolutely magical, the solutions that will come because you have clearly defined what you want. You can change that as your thoughts and processes evolve. But as long as you have that clear, concise, written image, written is stronger because you've made the physical action of writing it. You've thought about it, you've written it down, then you've read it, and then you've ceremonially placed it under your pillow. It really, really works. Good stuff.
And one that
I should do it. Sorry, I should do it more.
one I ran across just this week was somebody who actually uses affirmations and questions to energize their drinking water. They will actually write that stuff down on a piece of paper and have a pitcher or a glass of water, and they'll set it on there and leave it overnight to energize the water. And some of you that are watching this live or watching the recording, it can sound woo-woo, but I tell you what, after, I'm sure a number of us on the panel will confer. We've seen so many things, witnessed so many things. Woo-woo is, for us, woo-woo has to be way out there. Yes, Lenore.
I find that there are so many things, especially with Instagram. You can just scroll for hours upon hours, and there's so many things that you eventually come to the conclusion that they all work in some way, shape, or form, depending on the intention and the energy that you're setting forth. And I think the hardest part for me is, what does Yoda say? You must unlearn what you have learned.
And ironically, that statement right there covers all the topics we had tonight. Cravings, addictions, procrastination. You have to unlearn what you learned and learn a new way.
Absolutely spot on. That does summarize it all.
Yes. That phrase was handed to me quite a while ago with dancing, of all things, because I had learned, I'm going to call it survival swing. It wasn't East Coast swing. It wasn't West Coast swing. But I had learned to do it so well that when I tried to dance with somebody who had learned traditional East Coast swing or traditional West Coast swing, I literally had to unlearn what I'd done and learn how to do this dance. Even though it had a lot of components that were similar, it was harder for me to try and integrate the new stuff with the old stuff than it was to just go, teach me how to dance. I had to unlearn it before I could learn.
Yeah, it is difficult unlearning something you've done for a long time.
Yes, the circuitry is all set.
It takes a lot of determination to keep practicing the new way.
It really does. And I find that the more conversations you have with people, but that are in your tribe and in like-minded growth mindset of, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you tried this? Like, look at it this way. Look at what else is there, and to have conversations about it. You know, even listening, but then even digesting it yourself and thinking about it really helps move you forward. And when you stop and when you take a few days off where you're like, no, I won't listen to something, I'll listen to something else, you can fall right back into that way as faster than you can blink. And you really, it's truly a maintenance, a practice, an art, whatever label you want to give it, but it to be continuous. It's like washing your clothes. It's
Now,
gotta
here's a question for topic. People who learn a lot of stuff and love to learn, do you think it's easier for them to unlearn and learn than it is for people that are minimalists and they only wanted to keep their sights on doing it this way for so long, and then to try and break the pack on whatever subject? The unlearning and learning is such a new concept that it can be much harder than the people who are constantly learning new things, new ways, new improvements, new stuff like that. Any input on that?
I'll jump in for a second. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah.
So as we're doing this, I just keep thinking about piano. And so first of all, I do think that just learning is a skill, and the more you practice it, the better you get at it. But also learning to be patient and humble enough to go slow and ask questions will always make you go faster. So in piano, we always say, if you're, I need to play this as fast as I possibly can the first try. For every time you practice it wrong, you have to practice it right. The rule is 8 times to make up for the one time you practiced it wrong. So if you're willing to be, and like I said, I think it's a humility thing. It's a willingness to ask questions thing. It's having a growth mindset versus a limited mindset. But if you do proper learning a lot, I'm sure you learn the growth mindset. You learn the value of being humble, all of that, by doing it more and more and more. So anyway, my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Oh, I have to say, in relation to music in particular, if you're learning something different and new, or want to, a piece that but you want to play it much better, if you break it all apart, like playing it backwards, or playing it in a different key, or playing it with a different rhythm, it breaks that cycle. And when you go to play it forwards again, the whole game has been changed. And the other aspect I'm bursting to say is speaking your new truth, talking about who you are now to your tribe, in particular, the people you care about. It kind of makes you real in that world as this new person, this new version of you, and they will buy into it. And then you will buy into it. So, it becomes mutually supporting and growthful. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Lenore. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I love how Fran just pointed out identity shift and changing masks. And, especially when you say, this is how I'm going to be, to the people that are with you, that support you, that want that for you. And then they reflect it back and they have that support in those shifts that you're making, I think is a really great thing. And you know what, guys, you heard it here first. I'm going to rebrand the entire self-help community, and it's going to be called Help Yourself, because I really think it should just be considered a buffet. So when you want to learn something, especially just look outside in this entire world and how many things that you can actually just start to read about, learn about, look at a video about. There's so much out there. Help yourself to the knowledge, to the information that's out there, to all this incredible stuff. And yes, we can definitely scroll for hours, but what are you scrolling at? What are you looking at? Where's your attention going? Is it to things that are giving you joy and that are supporting that growth and that component that you want? Or are they things that are actually aggravating you because X, Y, and Z, and I don't have this and I don't have that? Which way do you want to go? Help yourself to the smorgasbord.
Squirrel. It reminded, as soon as you said that, what popped up was a comment that I've heard many, many times since Fake Book came out. where people were like, oh, it's just a bunch of that and that and that and that and that and that. And I went, Facebook and social media is the collective tribe that you've built online. And if yours is a bunch of negative, gossipy, whatever, part of that is a reflection on you. My Facebook feed, for the most part, is pretty much filled with motivation and comedy and building and business and things of that nature. Because that's who I search out, that's who I pay attention to, that's what I click on the most. My Instagram feed, same thing. It's a lot of psychology, business, building, things of that nature. And if that's not what is showing up, start searching for it. Build that trend, and building your mindset is pretty much the same. It's going to be really hard to build a business mindset if the majority of your free time is spent watching funny cat videos. Nothing against cats, nothing against comedy, all the above. I get to enjoy them as well. I know, easy now. I figured that'd bring me out of the shadows. But when I get to see funny animal videos, is usually relegated to about a half an hour at the end of the day when we're having a bite to eat and relaxing. Most of the time, if I'm doing a mental pause and I'm online on social media or something, those people that are getting, there's a few people that could testify, especially like on Instagram. I'm sharing side hustle information, really cool websites to help make income, building practices, mental health practices, things of that nature, because that's what I follow. That's the tribe that I've built in that platform. And for a vast majority of my life, I am a happy information junkie. I want to learn. Teach me something, teach me anything, stimulate my brain, make me grow. I want to know something new. And it's kind of funny and rewarding when people are like, is there anything you don't know? Yeah, there's a lot I don't know. But I've invested a good portion of my life to know a lot of stuff. And with these now and the internet, the answers are out there everywhere, affordably. I don't know of any time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a time in history where you can learn so much so easily, so affordably, where you can change who you are just as affordably, just as easily. And that's a challenge I put out to my clients all the time. You can be virtually anybody that you want to be.
And that kind of brings back to the community, the tribe that we're in, because the power of the tribe makes us more than our sum parts. We really grow and bounce off each other and expand in ways and levels that we couldn't do. And getting together in these online communities so we can bounce all these ideas from all over the world. We are so amazingly blessed with that. And, you know, I so thank you that you make me more than me. And I hope I contribute to making you more than you.
Unquestionably, unquestionably. That's why I'm so humbled, and even yeah. My mother, I talked to her between, you know, in the last 7 days, and I asked her what, because she likes to, hi mom. Asked her what she thought of last Triple T, and she said, ended a little emotional, didn't you? Because she knows I'm one of those rock solid tough dudes that never shows emotions. And I said, yeah, because I truly am continuously humbled by you guys.
And how much strength our tribe gives us when we're stretching ourselves past points we thought we couldn't reach. And when you believe in me, I can do more than I thought I could. And I'm sure that's true for all of us. You know, having that group support does raise us up, does enable us to do more than we ever believed we could.
And the belief factor is so important. Has been proven so many times. The things that people have, well, people, humans, animals accomplish because they didn't know they couldn't do it.
Or awkward people like me who insist on doing things because people say you can't do it.
Yes, whatever the motivation is. But even like the people that, how many stories of, I wish I could remember off the top of my head the person who, for the longest, like until he was like 9th grade or something, thought that he was on the verge of, you know,
Les Brown, I believe.
well, one of them, but this guy, it was time to do SATs.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, he did his SAT, and it wasn't until 5 years or more later that it came out that when they judged the SATs, they had mixed it up, and his SAT came back and said he was near genius. And his grades went from C's and D's to straight A's, continued on to college. And when they took the old SATs and retested them, his SAT came out, yeah, like bottom on a scale of 1 to 10. His SAT, instead of coming back at a 9.5, came back at like a 3. But that belief system, when he saw his SAT and went, "Oh, I am smarter than everybody told me," and he rose to the occasion and didn't know any different. And it looks like our amazing Holly, who's an absolute awesome research guru, may have found the story on that. So if it didn't show up Holly, can you extrapolate a little bit on what you found there, please?
Okay, so this is a quick, I haven't had a chance to really look at it too closely. The article is by a guy named Pete. I don't know how to say the last name, so I'll spell it Weishaupt. But it's saying, it turns out the SAT board periodically reviews. Anyway, the guy they're talking about, I haven't found the name of the guy yet, but his actual score was 740, but he got a 1480, which if you know the SAT scores, that's a huge difference to change.
Yeah, basically the difference between a 9.5 and a 3. And if he would have gotten 3, hard to say what he would have ended up being. Thank God he got a 9.5 and didn't know for a number of years. And hopefully, by the time the information came out, he had already built an identity that no longer relied on that information. And you got to wonder how many of those people are still a 3 because nobody ever told them they were a 9.5.
I had a very similar experience, which only changed as an adult. When I was in school, I was B, C, D in most subjects. But when I was doing some study as an adult, somebody told me how to write an exam paper. From my learning, I'd always done, you start at question 1, you do question 2, you do get question 3. It doesn't matter, the value of the scoring. But when somebody actually stopped me and said, well, look, read it all first, read what are the most valuable questions, do the ones you can do first, and then go back. I had no idea. And I turned from a B and C student into an A student, just like that, just by that one single thing. And I came top of the bloody class. Yay! And I had never had that experience before. And I had to reassess me. It was wonderful.
And how many people are being improperly judged because they're a fish that can't climb a tree like a monkey? Well, you can't do that. Well, you don't fit in. Well, what if you started judging fish for fish instead of monkeys that can climb trees? I hate to break it to you, the monkey doesn't swim under the water quite as long as the fish does. Just saying.
And if you haven't been shown how to do something, how are you expected to do it?
Is it a hardware or software issue?
I'll jump in. I probably told this one a million times because it's one of my go-tos, but just a reminder too that they did that study. I'll have to look for the link, but what they did is they took a bunch of Asian women and they were all roughly the same IQ, test taking abilities, scores, whatever. They made sure they were a uniform sample and they randomly assigned them to 3 groups. Group A, they told them, you're all women and women are bad at math, some version of that, and then had them take a test. Group B is the control. Group C, they told them, you're all Asian and Asians are good at math. And of course, at the end, those who were told you're Asian, you're good at math scored way higher than those who were told you're women, you're bad at math. And of course, the control group was in the middle. So they went back to redo this thing, and they did an English test. And so the first group, they said, women are better at language. Control group, Asians are not as good at language as native speakers. Similar results, of course, swapped the other direction. So it's just that reminder of it really does make a difference for most people, what they believe about themselves, what they're being told. Because once again, there was no difference in actual ability. But in results, it was night and day different. So.
Yes.
And it makes a big difference if you are the one against the general view. If you believe in yourself, you can stick to your guns, whereas if there's everybody else thinking one way and you don't have that belief in yourself, it's really hard to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. You know, have a look again. But your belief in yourself makes a huge difference, and then how other people perceive you as well, of course.
And that's where us as purveyors of change are able to go out and make the dent in the universe and help people to become more than they believe they could be. And warn about the power of words and beliefs. Those who know me know that I call people out all the time for negative self-talk. I call people out all the time for things that they say to others. Because language, ironically, has such power, and yet it's not the words that hold the power. It's the energy inside of the recording and how we record it. Oftentimes when I'm dealing with people that are dealing with resentment and PTSD, things of that nature, especially because of things that somebody, especially like a family member or a spouse, had said to them, I've got a protocol where I go in and prove to them it wasn't the words that were said. It was the energy that you attached to the recording that is affecting you. A lot of times I'm like, if we take that exact same sentence and I have you walking down a city street and there's a drunk meth head homeless guy, and if you're a drunk meth head homeless person and you think I'm talking about you, I'm not. But if a drunk meth head homeless person said the same thing to you, would it affect you the same way? Well, of course, the answer is, oh, well, no. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't the words. It was the meaning and the energy that you attached to it in the recording. And sadly enough, every time you go back and replay the recording, the same energy is there, if not added to or embellished on or all the above.
And who is the most powerful speaker of the words that we listen to?
The person that's
Ourselves.
operating the mouth.
Ourselves, yeah.
Ourselves. Absolutely.
We gotta watch what we say.
Very much so. You know?
It's really interesting. Language has also been called the symbolization of thought. So when you're talking, not only are you hearing this, you're also perceiving your own interpretation of it. And then that's how it's getting locked in. And even though you're the recorder, you're not told you're the recorder and really able to understand it until you start to do some deeper work. Like if I had said to somebody in a general conversation, oh, that's just your perception. Whew, holy cow, what a conversation that could blow up into. But to really take it and internalize it and start to digest it is really, really remarkable, I think.
Well, and oftentimes the values and criteria that we base our whole life judgment on is given to us by a huge majority by the words we heard from our physical gods, mommy, daddy. And oftentimes when I have somebody state belief systems and I tell them to close their eyes and I say, where do you hear those words coming from? point to where you hear the words coming from in your head. They will point. They very rarely point down. They're constantly pointing up to the left or the right, because that's where the voices came from when they were children. And that's where the values and criteria information entered and was given meaning. Yes? Okay.
Another thing that's really interesting, I think, is if you aren't really sure what you think about something, talk it over with a friend, but listen to what you say. If you can, even record it, because sometimes when we're not really sure, if we just talk to someone and hear what we're saying, we didn't realize that that was actually what we thought, that was actually what we believed, until we bring it out of ourselves in the conversation. So the power of words is so valuable, and the power of our own words. And there was a whole series of historical recordings where somebody was interviewing people who'd gone through difficult and traumatic events, took a recording and then played these recordings back to the people. And they were amazed at the things they said and hearing their experiences related back to them. So, I mean, that's something we can actually do quite easily, a lot more. Not just, well, I mean, this forum's great, but, you know, in personal one-on-one situations, these are tools that we've got at our fingertips.
And that also brought us right into, unfortunately, we're out of time, but that brings us right into the trifecta and why Echo Talk and Three Magic Questions work so well. Because so often people talk without hearing the words coming out their mouth, but when the words are reflected back to them and they hear the exact words that came out of their mouth, they're like, oh, their brain lights up going, yeah, that's what I said. That is what I said. And we don't even recognize that that's going on. But that's a whole other topic for another Triple T. This brings number 54 to a close. And as always, I am humbled and thank you for your investment of your time. I've said it many, many times. It's the one thing that I can't give you back is your time. So thank you for sharing your valuable resources with me. I hope that you have gotten some value out of it. For those of you watching live on YouTube, thank you. For those of you watching the recording, thank you. Please leave comments. I love hearing them all, good and bad, because it helps me make sure that I'm keeping things on track. And the subject matter that we're talking about opens up lots of questions, lots of comments, lots of different views, and I would love to hear them all. So please load up the comment section. That being said, I'll hopefully see you all back here, healthy, happy, vibrant, and doing well in another 7 days for Triple T number 55. Until then, God bless, go out, be nice to each other. Thank you. Love you all, and good things. Bye.